Have you ever had a single phone call completely shatter your world? For Maggie Reynolds, that call came at exactly 7:32 on a Tuesday morning. She knew the precise time because she was watching the digital clock in her kitchen, letting her coffee grow cold as she saw the seconds pass. The voice on the other end was professional and unfamiliar. When it asked, "Mrs. Reynolds?" she replied, "Yes, this is Margaret Reynolds." The woman continued, "Ma'am, my name is Detective Sarah Walsh with the Manhattan Police Department. We need you to come to the station. This is regarding your husband, Richard Reynolds." The coffee mug slipped right through Maggie's fingers and smashed on the marble floor of their lavish Park Avenue penthouse. "Mrs. Reynolds, are you still on the line?" Maggie just stared as the dark liquid bled across the pure white floor, a perfect symbol for the 22 years of her perfect life that were now starting to crack apart. "I'm here," she finally said. "What happened? Is Rick okay?" The detective replied, "No, ma'am, he isn't hurt. But there has been an incident that involves your husband and a young actress named Sophia Blake. The news is already calling it the biggest scandal of the year." Just then, Maria, their housekeeper, showed up in the doorway, her face etched with worry. In the 15 years she had worked at the Reynolds home, she had never seen Maggie so much as drop a tissue. "Mrs. Maggie, is everything all right?" Maria asked in her soft accent, already moving forward to sweep up the broken china. Maggie raised a hand to stop her, the phone still pressed tightly to her ear. "Detective Walsh, what sort of incident?" The detective's voice was flat. "Ma'am, your husband was photographed coming out of the Ritz-Carlton at 2 in the morning with Miss Blake. On top of that, there are allegations of financial misconduct at his company." Each word landed like a punch. Her millionaire husband, soon to be her ex-husband, was not just cheating, but was apparently a thief as well. The flawless life she had constructed, the relentless social climbing, the glamorous charity events, and the perfectly decorated home, it was all turning to dust. "I will be there in 1 hour," she somehow managed to say. Maria was still there, holding a broom, her expression full of concern. "Mrs. Maggie?" Maggie's voice sounded foreign to her, unnaturally calm. "It is fine, Maria. Please just leave it for now. I have to get dressed and go downtown." She walked into her bedroom, feeling completely numb, her bare feet making no sound on the imported Italian marble. Their master bedroom was a shrine to Rick's wealth. It had 1,200 thread-count Egyptian cotton sheets, a custom-made mahogany headboard that cost more than a luxury car, and a walk-in closet bigger than most apartments in the city. Maggie stood before her mirror and looked at the reflection of a 47-year-old woman who had just learned her entire life was a sham. Her auburn hair, cut to shoulder length, was perfectly in place from a salon visit the day before. Her skin was flawless, a testament to what the best dermatologists could provide. She was in a silk nightgown that had cost $800, and suddenly none of that meant anything. She chose a navy blue Chanel suit, putting on a suit of armor for the battle ahead. As she got dressed, her mind started clearing, pushing past the initial shock and toward a sharper, colder state of mind. After 22 years of marriage, she was learning from a police officer that her husband was having an affair. Not from Rick, not from the society gossips, but from a complete stranger. The elevator ride down to the ground floor seemed to last forever. Harold, the doorman, tipped his cap as she walked by him. "Good morning, Mrs. Reynolds. Should I get a car for you?" She replied, "Yes, please. I am going to the police station downtown." If Harold was shocked, he did a great job of hiding it. In a city like Manhattan, the rich often had very strange errands to run. The taxi ride through the morning rush gave Maggie a moment to herself. She took out her phone and finally did the one thing she had been dreading. She searched for her husband's name online. The headlines were inescapable. CEO Richard Reynolds in hotel tryst with actress Sophia Blake. Another read, Reynolds Industries stock in freefall after scandal. And another, divorce on the horizon for power couple. The pictures were brutal. There was Rick, her handsome 52-year-old husband, wrapped in a clear embrace with a woman who could have been his daughter. Sophia Blake was 28 years old, blonde, gorgeous, and the exact opposite of Maggie. Her phone started buzzing with texts from worried friends, but she ignored every single one. She would deal with all that later. This story proves that your greatest chapter can begin exactly when someone tries to end you. If you have ever felt trapped, worthless, or defined by someone else's opinion of you, stay until the very end. What happens next will change how you see your own power. The police station was a huge granite building in lower Manhattan, already swarmed by news trucks and photographers. Maggie calmly paid the driver and walked straight through the mob, holding her head high. She paid no attention to the questions being yelled at her or the blinding camera flashes. Mrs. Reynolds, did you know about the affair? Margaret, are you planning to file for divorce? Do you have any comment about your husband's business dealings? She pushed her way through the glass doors of the station, thankful to finally be in the quiet interior. A woman who looked to be in her 40s walked up to her, a badge clearly visible on her belt. Mrs. Reynolds, I am Detective Walsh. I appreciate you coming in. Maggie asked directly, What exactly is happening, Detective? The detective led her to a small conference room with harsh fluorescent lights and cheap carpeting. Let's sit, and I will walk you through everything. Detective Walsh placed a thick file on the table and opened it. Mrs. Reynolds, we have been looking into some financial problems at Reynolds Industries for a few months. Last night, we were watching your husband when we saw him meeting with Miss Blake. While we were watching them, we found proof of what looks like embezzlement from his own company. The words hit Maggie like a wave of freezing water. Embezzlement? The detective nodded. It seems your husband has been secretly moving money from the company's charitable foundation to his own private accounts. We are talking about several $1 million over the last 3 years. Maggie felt a cold knot form in her stomach. That charitable foundation was her entire world. She had started it, managed it, and planned every single fundraising event. Her own name was on all the official papers. Detective, does this mean I am being investigated too? She asked. For now, we are simply trying to get information. But Mrs. Reynolds, I have to ask you, were you aware of any of these financial transfers? Absolutely not. She answered immediately, and with total conviction. I managed the daily work of the foundation, but Rick always took care of the finances. He used to say it was all too complicated for me to worry about. As the words left her mouth, Maggie felt a surge of anger at herself. Too complicated for her, as if she were a little girl who couldn't possibly understand numbers. We will need you to return tomorrow with a lawyer to provide a formal statement, Detective Walsh told her. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you find a very good divorce attorney. And Mrs. Reynolds? Yes? I would also advise you to freeze all of your joint bank accounts and get copies of every financial document you can. Do it today. Maggie left the police station feeling like she was walking underwater. The entire world looked different. The bright morning sun felt cruel, the city noise was unbearable, and every stranger's face seemed hostile. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from friends, reporters, and business partners. She powered it off and waved down another taxi. Where to, ma'am? The driver asked. She almost said home. But then she caught herself. The penthouse was no longer her home. It was just another gilded cage she hadn't even realized she was trapped in. Reynolds Industries, she said. Midtown. It was time to meet her millionaire ex-husband in person. The towering glass buildings of Midtown Manhattan shone in the sun as Maggie's taxi stopped in front of Reynolds Industries. The 50-story skyscraper was Rick's tribute to himself, with his name carved in gold letters on the marble exterior. Just 3 hours after that life-altering phone call, Maggie stood in the grand lobby, noticing the employees whispering and staring. In the corporate world, bad news spreads like wildfire, and everyone knew it was a bad sign when the CEO's wife appeared looking like she was dressed for a funeral. The elevator ride up to the 40th floor felt like she was being sent to her own execution. Maggie watched the floor numbers light up, each one bringing her closer to a confrontation she never thought she would have to face. Rick's secretary, Amanda, looked up with pure panic in her eyes as Maggie exited the elevator. Mrs. Reynolds? Mr. Reynolds he's in a meeting right now. A really important one. Maybe you should come back a little later. Maggie's voice was calm, but there was a core of steel beneath the surface. Amanda, I have known you for 8 years. Please do not lie to me. Where is my husband? Amanda couldn't look her in the eye and whispered, Boardroom B. Maggie walked down the long hallway she had walked down so many times for company parties and holiday events. The walls were covered with pictures of Rick shaking hands with famous politicians, celebrities, and powerful executives. In a lot of those pictures, she was right there next to him, smiling, elegant, playing the role of the perfect corporate wife. She stopped just outside the heavy wood doors of Boardroom B and could hear voices from inside. She recognized Rick's deep voice, along with the voices of several of his top executives. The most important thing right now is to kill this story, Rick was saying. I do not care how much it costs. Pay off anyone who needs to be paid off and threaten anyone who needs to be threatened. Another man's voice responded, Rick, the pictures are already all over the internet. What about the police investigation? Let me handle the police, Rick shot back. I have donated more than enough money to their charities over the years. They will do what I say. That was when Maggie pushed the doors open without even knocking. 7 men in expensive suits all turned to gape at her. Rick was at the head of the huge conference table, his silver hair perfectly in place and his Armani suit without a single wrinkle. He looked like the picture of a successful CEO, right up until you looked into his eyes. Gentlemen, Rick's voice cut through the heavy silence. Would you mind giving my wife and me a moment alone? The executives shuffled out of the boardroom, like kids caught, doing something wrong, not one of them daring to look at Maggie. Once the door clicked shut, the quiet in the room was absolute. Maggie, Rick started, using that condescending tone he always saved for explaining things to people he thought were simple. I realize what this must look like. Let's just get to it, Rick, she said, turning his favorite phrase back on him like a weapon. How long? How long what? Don't play dumb with me. How long have you been with Sophia Blake? Rick's hand went to his tie, a nervous habit that always gave him away. Maggie, it is a complicated situation. You have no idea the kind of pressure I am under, the stress of running a corporation of this magnitude. How long? The question hung between them, sharp as a knife. Rick turned his back on her and walked over to the windows that showcased the city below. 8 months, he finally admitted. 8 months? While Maggie was busy orchestrating charity fundraisers and hosting elegant dinner parties, while she was upholding her end as the flawless wife, he was off creating an entirely separate life without her. And what about the embezzlement? Rick whipped around, his face turning a deep shade of red. That is not embezzlement. That has always been my money. I built this company from the ground up. I started that foundation. I started that foundation? Maggie interrupted, her voice finally cracking with emotion. I am the one who wrote the mission statement. I put together every single event. I charmed every last donor, and you have been stealing from it. I have not been stealing anything. I have been reallocating assets as a protection against possible lawsuits. It is called strategic financial planning, Maggie, but the details would be over your head. Stop. The single word was as sharp as a slap. Stop speaking to me as if I am a child, Richard. I may not have a business degree from an Ivy League school, but I am not an idiot. For a split second, a look of what might have been regret flashed in Rick's eyes, but it vanished so fast she thought she might have imagined it. Maggie, please sit down. Let's handle this like two rational adults. I am handling this like an adult. You are the one who has been behaving like a high schooler with a brand new credit card. She stood her ground, her knuckles white as she gripped the back of a chair. Tell me about Sophia. What about her? Is she pregnant? The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Rick's jaw clenched, and Maggie knew the answer before he even opened his mouth. Yes. The word landed like a punch to her gut. After 22 years of marriage, they had never managed to have children of their own. It was not because they had not tried. They had poured a small fortune into fertility clinics, suffering through endless tests, invasive procedures, and crushing disappointments. Rick always swore it did not matter, that their life together was complete just as it was. Apparently, it only did not matter when the children would have been hers. How far along is she? 4 months? 4 months. Maggie quickly did the math in her head. Sophia Blake had become pregnant right around Rick's 50th birthday party, the extravagant event Maggie had spent 3 long months planning. I want a divorce, Rick blurted out, the words tumbling out of him. Maggie, I am asking for a divorce. Sophia is having my baby, and I intend to marry her. And there it was. 22 years of her life, erased in just 2 sentences. I see. Maggie's voice was remarkably calm, but on the inside, she felt a deep crack form as the last piece of the life she knew crumbled away. And you figured you would soften the news by first stealing millions of dollars? I have not stolen anything, Rick snapped. Everything I have done is perfectly legal. And honestly, Maggie, you ought to be thanking me. Do you really believe you would have any of this if it were not for me? He gestured around the luxurious boardroom, a symbol of their penthouse, their clothes, their entire lifestyle. You had nothing when we met. You were just a secretary at some law firm. A paralegal, Maggie corrected him softly. Whatever. The point is, I created you. I gave you a life that you could have only dreamed of, and now you have the nerve to act like you are entitled to tear it all down just because I happened to fall in love with someone else. His words cut deep because there was a small, painful sliver of truth to them. Maggie had been a paralegal when they first met, working exhausting hours for little pay, crammed into a tiny studio apartment with a roommate. Rick had introduced her to a world of wealth and privilege she never knew existed, but she had worked for her place in that world. She had been the ideal corporate wife, the charming hostess, and the relentless charity organizer. She had put her own ambitions aside for his, merging her identity with his success. And now he was brushing it all off, as if she were nothing more than a high-priced decoration. You are right about one thing, Rick, she said at last. I had nothing when you met me, but I am not that person anymore. What is that supposed to mean? It means you are about to learn who you have actually been married to for the past 22 years. She started for the door, then stopped. Oh, and Rick, you should probably get your lawyer on the phone. Because I am about to call mine. She strode out of the boardroom with her head held high, leaving Rick to stand alone in the ruins of his collapsing empire. As the elevator descended, Maggie felt something she had not felt in decades. Freedom. It was terrifying, and it was thrilling. Her phone showed 17 missed calls. She ignored all of them but one, a text message from Janet Cooper, her best friend since they were in college. Saw the news? I am on my way with wine, tissues, and the number for my lawyer. For the first time all day, Maggie managed to smile. That night, Maggie was sitting in Janet Cooper's cozy Brooklyn brownstone, soaking in the comforting chaos of a real family home. Teenagers bickering upstairs, a dog yapping in the yard, and the warm aroma of a home-cooked meal wafting in from the kitchen. "Honey, listen to me," Janet said, pouring them both a very generous glass of red wine. "Men like Rick never change. Their taste in women just gets more expensive." Janet was the polar opposite of Maggie, loud, fiercely opinionated, and totally at ease with who she was. They had been roommates in college and had stayed best friends through 2 decades of completely different lives. While Maggie had married into money, Janet had married for love, creating a messy, wonderful family with her husband, who was an architect. "I just keep thinking I should have known," Maggie confessed, taking the wine with gratitude. All of those late nights, he claimed, were at the office, the business trips that just kept popping up over the last year. "Oh, stop. The only thing you should have expected was a line of women trying to get with your wealthy husband, sweetie. You trusted him. That is what a wife is supposed to do." Janet got comfortable in her favorite armchair, a beat-up piece of furniture that Rick would have turned his nose up at. "The real question is, what are you going to do now?" "I have no idea. For a minute today, I felt like a different person, actually standing up to him like that. But now..." Maggie gestured vaguely with her hands. "Who am I without him? I do not have a job. I have no money of my own." "Stop right there," Janet said, her voice sharp. "You have been running a multi-million-dollar charitable foundation for the last 10 years. You have organized fundraisers that brought in more money than some small countries earn in a year. You speak 3 languages, you have a master's degree, and you are one of the most intelligent people I know. Do not you dare sell yourself short because some self-absorbed jerk made you feel insignificant." Maggie felt the sting of tears in her eyes. "I just feel so incredibly stupid, Janet. 22 years and I never saw a thing." "That does not make you stupid. It makes you a trusting person. There is a big difference." Janet leaned in closer. "So what did your lawyer have to say?" "I have not called one yet." "What?" "Maggie, you have got to protect yourself, especially if Rick has been hiding money." "I know you are right. I will call someone first thing in the morning." Maggie put her wine glass down. "First, I need to go back to the apartment and grab a few things. Important documents, my jewelry, anything I do not want to risk losing." "Do you want me to go with you?" "No, this is something I have to do by myself." An hour later, Maggie was standing in her penthouse apartment for what she knew would be the last time. The space felt completely different, like she was walking through a museum exhibit titled "Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, circa 2025. The fresh flowers Rick had sent over every week, the expensive art they had picked out together, and the framed photos of their supposedly blissful life. It all felt like it belonged to someone else. She went into Rick's study, his private retreat of dark wood and leather, where he handled his most sensitive business. She had always been allowed in, but she never stayed long. It was Rick's space, but now she examined it with fresh eyes, hunting for his secrets. His desk was clean. Rick was far too clever to leave incriminating evidence out in the open, but she knew there was a safe tucked away behind a section of fake books. and she knew the combination because Rick, in his arrogance, had never changed it from their wedding anniversary. 05-182-1003. The safe was much bigger than she remembered, and it was packed with files she had never laid eyes on. Stock certificates, property deeds, life insurance policies. It was the entire paper trail of their shared life, all sorted and filed with Rick's obsessive precision. And there at the very bottom of the stack, she found something that made her whole body tremble. Adoption papers with her name on them. Margaret Sarah Harrison, born on May 18th, 1978, adopted by James and Linda Morrison on September 3rd, 1978. Maggie just stared at the document, her head spinning. She had known her whole life that she was adopted. The Morrisons had told her as soon as she was old enough to grasp it, but she had never known her birth name or any details about her biological parents. The documents named her birth father as a William Harrison from Dallas, Texas. His age at the time of her birth was 25. His occupation was listed as oil industry. In the margin, there was a phone number scribbled in Rick's perfect handwriting, with a note that said, "Emergency contact only." Maggie's hands shook as she took out her phone and typed William Harrison, Dallas, oil into the search bar. The results that popped up made her collapse into Rick's expensive leather chair. William Harrison was not just in the oil industry. He basically was the oil industry in Texas. Harrison Petroleum represented one of the biggest private oil fortunes in America, with a value estimated at $8 billion. According to the documents, William Harrison had been searching for his lost daughter for more than 40 years. "Well, I will be," Maggie murmured, using a classic saying from the adoptive dad who had raised her. She took pictures of every single page inside the safe, then meticulously placed each item back in its original position. However, she held on to the adoption paperwork and the handwritten phone number. Maggie then took a final walk through the penthouse, grabbing a small suitcase and filling it with only the essentials. Just as she was shutting the closet door, her phone vibrated. A text message from a number she did not recognize popped up. It read, "I saw the news about your husband. If you want the real story on what he has been up to, meet me at Cafe Luna tomorrow morning at 10. The message ended with the two words, "Come alone." Maggie just stared at her screen for a moment before deleting the entire conversation. She had dealt with enough shocking truths for one day, but as she walked out of the penthouse, she felt a profound shift deep within her. For the first time in 22 years, she was no longer Mrs. Richard Reynolds. She was the daughter of William Harrison, a fact that could change her entire world. Later, at her friend Janet's house, she laid out the adoption papers. "My God, Maggie," Janet said, her voice a hushed whisper as she looked over the pages. "Do you have any idea what this means?" Maggie replied, "It means I might have a real family out there that I never knew." Janet shook her head. "It means you have about 8 billion reasons to stop worrying about whatever settlement Rick is offering." Maggie's eyes fell on the phone number again. The next day, she would face a choice. Either call a man who might be her father, or she could keep trying to piece together a life that was already shattered beyond repair. But that night, she felt a glimmer of something she had not felt in months, a feeling that resembled hope. This could change absolutely everything. The following morning was filled with the roar of a private jet's engines firing up on a runway at JFK. With trembling hands, Maggie had dialed the number from Rick's safe at sunrise, making the call to Texas. Harrison residence, a woman's voice with a heavy southern drawl, answered the phone. My name is Margaret Reynolds. I need to speak with William Harrison. I have reason to believe he may be my father." An intense silence followed on the other end, stretching on for so long that Maggie was sure she had been disconnected. Then, a deep, authoritative man's voice boomed in the background. "Give me that phone, Margaret." His voice was exactly as she had pictured it, a Texas accent made gentle by age and overwhelming emotion. "Is that really you, my little girl?" That loving phrase completely broke down her defenses. "I think it is. I have adoption documents, and they list you as my birth father." He replied, "Now you listen to me, young lady. I have spent 47 years looking for you. Tell me where you are. I am in New York. I am sending my plane for you right now. Do not move an inch until it gets there." That conversation happened 6 hours ago. Now Maggie was sitting inside the plush cabin of a Gulfstream jet, watching the American heartland scroll by below her at 40,000 feet. She had never been on a private flight. Rick always called it a pointless extravagance, and the quiet opulence felt completely unreal. The flight attendant, a kind-eyed woman around Maggie's age, served her coffee in a real porcelain cup. "Mr. Harrison is so very excited to meet you," she offered with a warm smile. "He has carried a baby picture of you in his wallet for longer than I have worked for him." "How long have you been with him?" Maggie asked. 23 years. And I can tell you, in all that time, I have never seen him as purely happy as he was this morning when he found out you were coming home." Home. The word sounded foreign to Maggie. She had never considered Texas her home. While she was born there, she grew up in upstate New York with the Morrisons, wonderful people who provided a loving, middle-class life. They had passed away in a car crash 10 years earlier, which left Rick as her only family. As the jet started its descent into Dallas, Maggie leaned her head against the window. The city seemed to stretch out forever, a sprawling testament to oil wealth and Texan ambition. "Is this your first visit to Dallas?" the flight attendant inquired. "It is my first time back," Maggie gently corrected her. The Harrison Ranch was located a 40-minute drive from the city, down a long private road that wound through miles of rolling green hills and towering oil derricks. Maggie sat quietly in the back of a black Range Rover, watching a landscape that should have felt like her own, but instead seemed like a foreign country. When the main house finally appeared, it was nothing like she had imagined. She expected a flashy, over-the-top mansion, but instead saw a beautiful, sprawling ranch house. It was built with natural stone and weathered wood, designed to blend in with the land instead of dominating it. A man stood waiting for them on the front porch. The adoption papers said William Harrison was 72 years old, yet he moved with the energy of a man much younger, standing tall and broad with a full head of silver hair and piercing blue eyes. He projected an aura of deep confidence that only a lifetime of success could build. But the moment Maggie stepped out of the vehicle, all of that self-assurance seemed to vanish. "My goodness," he whispered, slowly walking down the porch steps to meet her. "You are the spitting image of your mother." They just stood there, looking at each other under the bright Texas sun, a father and daughter seeing each other for the first time in 47 years. "I do not remember her at all," Maggie said softly. He replied, "She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen, and the kindest soul." William's voice was thick with emotion. "She passed away when you were only 6 months old, in a car crash on a rainy night, just like the one that took your adoptive parents. It seems some families are just plagued by tragedy." "Then why did you give me away?" The question hung in the air between them like an accusation. William motioned to the chairs on the porch. "Please, sit with me. I will tell you the whole story." They sat down in 2 large, comfortable rocking chairs that overlooked the vast ranch, where horses could be seen grazing peacefully in the distance. "I was only 25 years old when you were born," William started. His voice had a measured pace. like a man telling a story he had silently told himself 1,000 times. I was young, foolish, and completely terrified of being a father. Your mother's name was Sarah. She was just 22. We were not married, which was a much bigger deal back then than it is today. He paused for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon. After she died, I completely fell apart. I started drinking heavily. I stopped going to work, and I almost destroyed the company my father had built. My own father finally gave me an ultimatum. He said I had two choices. I could either get my act together and raise you myself, or I could place you with a family that could give you the love you deserved while I put my own broken life back together. And you picked the family, Maggie stated flatly. I picked what I believed was the best thing for you. The Morrisons were good people. They were Sarah's cousin and her husband. They were unable to have children of their own, and they swore they would raise you and love you as if you were theirs. William's voice cracked with emotion. I promised myself I would come back for you as soon as I was worthy of being the father you needed. But you never came back. Maggie's voice was full of hurt. I tried to. Lord knows I tried. But every single time I thought I was getting close, every time I paid a new investigator or tracked down a new lead, something would block my path. The adoption records were sealed, files went missing, and the Morrisons moved away and even changed their last name by the time I finally located you again. You were 25 years old and already married to that viper you call a husband. A strange wave of anger on Rick's behalf rose in Maggie, even though she was furious with him. You have been watching me? I have been trying to look out for you, William stated firmly. Did you really think it was just a coincidence that your husband's business landed so many lucrative oil deals all these years? Do you honestly believe he built that entire company on his own talent? Each word landed on Maggie like a physical blow. You were helping Rick? No, I was helping you. Every deal he closed meant a more comfortable life for you. Every contract I steered his way was my attempt to provide for the daughter that I was not allowed to claim. Maggie shot up from her chair and began pacing the length of the porch. So you have been pulling the strings of my entire life, and I never even knew. William's voice was steady, but full of sorrow. I have been loving you in the only way I knew how. And now that snake is tossing you aside for a young actress, after I made him everything he is. He has no idea that you are my father, does he? He does not have a clue, but he is going to find out very soon. A hard, cold anger entered William's voice. That boy actually believes he can steal from you, humiliate you in public, and just walk away without any consequences. He is about to get a lesson on what happens when someone messes with a Harrison. Maggie spun around to face him. What are you talking about? But before William could explain, Maggie's phone began to ring. The screen showed the name David Martinez, who was Rick's attorney. Mrs. Reynolds, David's tone was strictly business. As your legal counsel, I feel it is my duty to inform you that your husband officially filed for divorce this morning. He is also taking steps to freeze every marital asset and is arguing that you have no claim to any part of his business. Maggie felt all the color drain from her face. Is he allowed to do that? He is certainly allowed to try, Mrs. Reynolds. But there is something else you need to know. There are also criminal charges about to be filed against you. The district attorney's office has reason to believe you were involved in the embezzlement from the charitable foundation. That is ridiculous. I did not have anything to do with that. I believe you, and you know the truth, but all the evidence they have is pointing directly at you. I am afraid your husband is planning to let you take the fall for his own crimes. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in Maggie's hand. What am I supposed to do? You need to hire the best criminal defense lawyer you can find, and you need to do it immediately. Maggie ended the call and looked up at William, who had heard every single word. Now you listen to me, young lady, he said, his voice firm and protective. William rose to his feet, a chilling calm in his eyes. That snake thinks he can ruin my daughter's life and just walk away clean. He has just made the final, fatal mistake of his pathetic existence. What are you planning to do? William offered a faint smile, and in that moment, Maggie finally understood the source of her own inner strength. My dear, you are about to witness what true power really is. At the same time, back in Manhattan, the story was exploding across every news channel in the city. This is Channel 7 News at noon. I am reporting live from outside Reynolds Industries, where our sources indicate that the divorce between Chief Executive Officer Richard Reynolds and his wife, Margaret, has taken a shocking new direction. Federal prosecutors are now looking into allegations of embezzlement from the Reynolds Family Foundation, a charity that has collected more than $50 million for children's charities over the last decade. The reporter, a sharp-looking woman in a red pantsuit, was positioned in front of the glittering skyscrapers of Midtown. A stream of employees hurried past in the background as she continued. The truly stunning part of this story is that Mrs. Reynolds, the very woman who founded and managed the charity, is now a person of interest in the theft of money intended for underprivileged children. All this is happening while her husband has been seen all over town with actress Sophia Blake, who is rumored to be carrying his child. Inside her brownstone in Brooklyn, Janet Cooper was battling a non-stop barrage of calls, her temper rising with each one. No comment, you bloodsuckers, she yelled into the receiver, before slamming it down on the third journalist in less than 10 minutes. These people are like sharks that have smelled blood in the water. Her teenage daughter, Emma, came into the kitchen with a worried look on her face. Mom, why are all those news vans parked on our street? Because some people are fools who believe they have the right to ruin a person's life. For their own amusement, Janet added, while filling a mug with coffee that was almost black. The phone began to ring once more. Janet checked the caller ID, and her face immediately softened. Maggie, thank heavens. Where are you? I am in Texas. Maggie's voice was crystal clear despite the long distance. Janet, they are trying to frame me for Rick's theft. I know, sweetie. It is plastered all over the news. But Maggie, there is something else you should know. I have been getting calls from reporters since early this morning, and they are digging into every part of your life, your past, your adoptive family, even back to your college days. And what are they finding? Nothing terrible, but they are asking a lot of questions about how a simple paralegal managed to marry a millionaire. They are trying to build a narrative that you are some kind of gold digger. On the other end of the phone, Maggie felt that old, familiar fire of anger ignite inside her. Let them dig. They are going to learn that I am not the easy target they imagined. What is that supposed to mean? It means I am not just Richard Reynolds' discarded wife any longer. I am the daughter of William Harrison. Janet almost fumbled the phone. The oil billionaire? Maggie, are you being serious? Completely serious. And Janet, Rick is about to learn a very hard lesson about picking a fight with the wrong woman. While Maggie was in Texas, learning about her real family, the media frenzy back in New York had escalated into a full-blown hurricane. Outside the Park Avenue penthouse, reporters had practically set up a small village, their cameras permanently aimed at the building's grand entrance. Rick had locked himself away in his office, ignoring all calls and snapping at anyone who dared to come near. The pressure was clearly getting to him. His normally immaculate hair was a mess. His expensive tie was crooked, and dark shadows had formed under his eyes. Sir, Amanda rapped lightly on his office door. Miss Blake is here to see you. Let her in, Rick grumbled, his eyes still glued to the legal papers spread all over his desk. Sophia Blake glided into the room as if she were stepping onto a red carpet. Even at 4 months pregnant, she was a vision, with her golden hair and striking figure, dressed in a designer outfit that likely cost more than what most people make in a month. "Darling," she cooed, gracefully taking a seat in the chair opposite his desk, "you look absolutely awful." "It has been a nightmare of a day," Rick answered sharply. "The press is relentless. My attorneys say the federal investigation is much more serious than we initially believed. And, to top it all off, Maggie seems to have vanished." "Vanished? What are you talking about, vanished? I mean, she is not picking up her phone, she is not at her friend's place in Brooklyn, and the security desk at the penthouse confirmed she has not been here since yesterday." For the first time, Rick looked up and met Sophia's eyes. This is not how this was supposed to go. Sophia calmly inspected her flawless manicure. "Darling, I did tell you that casting your wife aside during a criminal probe was a spectacularly bad idea. You should have held off until these legal issues were settled." "I could not hold off. You are pregnant." "The tabloids were already on to us, and I had to control the narrative," Rick explained, rubbing his temples. "Anyway, what is Maggie going to do? She is just a housewife. She has no money of her own, and no powerful friends except the ones she met through me. Perhaps, but a woman with nothing to lose can be very dangerous, darling, especially one who knows all of your secrets." Rick's phone vibrated with a text from a number he did not recognize. He looked at it, and his blood began to boil. "Your husband is unaware of the full scope of his actions. Meet me at Cafe Luna at 8 post Meridium if you want to help him before it is too late. Signed." "A friend of Maggie's. What is it?" Sophia inquired, noticing the change in his expression. "It is nothing. Just another reporter fishing for a scoop." Rick erased the text, but an uneasy feeling lingered. Who would pretend to be Maggie's friend and offer to help him? Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, the person who sent that mysterious text was in a different office, making a very different phone call. "Mr. Harrison, my name is David Martinez, and I am Mrs. Reynolds' attorney. I believe it is time for us to discuss your daughter's predicament." William Harrison's voice boomed through the receiver with the force of a thunderclap. "Mr. Martinez, I have been expecting someone to reach out. Just how bad is the situation for my daughter?" "Worse than she knows, sir. Her husband has meticulously built a case to frame her for his own crimes. But with your resources combined with my understanding of the case, I believe we can flip this entire situation on its head. Tell me what you require from me. For the moment, I just need you to be patient. Mrs. Reynolds has to come back to New York and confront this situation directly. But when that happens, I intend to provide her with every possible advantage. Money is not a concern. This is not about money, Mr. Harrison. This is about power, and your daughter is about to discover she possesses an immense amount of both." As the evening sun dipped below the Manhattan skyline, the chess pieces were being set for a much bigger game. Rick was confident he had an unbeatable hand, but he would soon find out that other players had been in this game far longer than he had. And the next day, with Maggie's return to New York, the true fight would finally start. The following Monday, Maggie strode into one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms. The sound of her heels echoing confidently on marble floors that put Rick's building to shame. The private jet had flown her back to New York that morning, but she was no longer the victim who had fled just days ago. She was a woman ready for a fight. The firm, Whitman, Sterling, and Associates, took up a whole floor of a skyscraper on Park Avenue. Their waiting area was filled with original oil paintings and plush leather furniture that spoke volumes about generational wealth and influence. Mrs. Reynolds, a receptionist with a perfectly crisp English accent, greeted her with a smile. Mr. Whitman is prepared for you now. Charles Whitman was precisely as Maggie pictured him, a man in his 70s with a full head of silver hair wearing a suit that cost more than a mid-sized sedan. Yet his handshake was strong and his eyes were incredibly sharp and intelligent. Mrs. Reynolds, please have a seat. I have been looking over the details of your case with great fascination. His office had a stunning view of Central Park, with massive windows from floor to ceiling that filled the room with daylight. Books on law filled the shelves, while framed degrees from Harvard and Yale were hung discreetly on the walls. Mr. Whitman, I need you to tell me exactly what I am up against, Maggie said, taking a seat in a leather armchair that was probably worth more than her first car. I will be blunt, Mrs. Reynolds. Your husband has created an elaborate scheme. It was designed to embezzle millions of dollars from your charity, all while setting it up to look like you were the one pulling the strings. Whitman opened a large file. He funneled money through offshore bank accounts, forged documents, and has been laying the groundwork to argue that you had both the access and the reason to commit the crime. But none of that is true. Of course, it is not. But the case he has built against you is remarkably solid. He has been setting this up for a minimum of 2 years, Mrs. Reynolds. This was not a spontaneous act. It was a cold, deliberate plan to ruin you, financially and legally, while he walked away untouched. Maggie felt a cold knot form in the pit of her stomach. What is the total amount of money involved? Somewhere around $12 million over the last 3 years. The number seemed to hang in the space between them like a guillotine. $12 million, a sum that could easily put her behind bars for life. But, Whitman added, and the shift in his voice made Maggie sit up straighter, some new information has come to light that changes the entire game. Changes things. How? Well, for starters, let's talk about your prenuptial agreement. You did sign one, did you not? Yes, but Rick's own lawyers drafted it. It essentially leaves me with nothing if we split up. That's usually the case, yes. But your agreement has a special clause. It becomes completely void if your husband commits adultery or a criminal act. Since Mr. Reynolds did both, that prenup is now just a useless piece of paper. A tiny spark of hope flickered within Maggie. So I can get half of his assets? Actually, Mrs. Reynolds, you are in line for much more than that. Whitman's smile was predatory, like a shark that just caught the scent of blood. You see, your husband is unaware of your true financial standing. I do not have a financial standing. His name is on everything. Mrs. Reynolds, have you ever heard of Harrison Petroleum? The question felt like it came out of left field. I know they are a huge oil company in Texas. What about them? Because, Mrs. Reynolds, you have owned 12% of that company since your 21st birthday. The statement struck her with the force of a punch. That is not possible. Your birth father, William Harrison, has been buying stock in your name for more than 25 years. He established a trust that came due on your 21st birthday, but all the paperwork was sealed until you consented to claim it. Whitman produced another stack of documents. These transfers have been held in an escrow account, just waiting for you to confirm you are his daughter. Maggie gazed at the documents, her mind struggling to process the figures. What is 12% of Harrison Petroleum worth? Based on the current market, it is worth around $200 million. The room began to spin around her. $200 million. For 2 days, she believed she was destitute and on the verge of going to jail. Now this lawyer was revealing she had more money than she could even imagine. Well, I will be damned, she breathed, echoing her adoptive dad's go-to expression. And there is more, Mrs. Reynolds. Over the years, your father also kept a record of every single business deal he arranged for your husband. Every oil contract, every sweetheart deal, every backdoor maneuver that turned Reynolds Industries into the giant it is today. He kept detailed files, very detailed, even recordings of phone calls where your husband admitted that Mr. Harrison's help was the only reason he was successful. Whitman leaned in closer. Mrs. Reynolds, your father created your husband's empire to take care of you. And now that your husband has betrayed you, Mr. Harrison is ready to tear down everything he built. Maggie got up and went to the window, gazing down at the city she had called home for over 20 years. From this height, everything seemed smaller, more controllable. Mrs. Reynolds, Whitman said softly, a lot of women in your position feel it is too late to start over after a marriage ends. They believe they are too old, too stuck, too reliant on the life they knew. You, however, are about to shatter that myth. She turned to look at him. What is the first step? First, we file divorce papers and get an emergency court order to freeze every single one of your husband's assets while the embezzlement is investigated. Second, we show proof that your husband manipulated and deceived you, which makes you his victim, not his partner in crime. Third, we unveil your actual financial power, showing everyone you have the means to see this fight through to the end. And fourth, Whitman's grin was all teeth. Fourth, we ruin your husband so thoroughly that he will spend every remaining day of his life regretting he ever heard the name Harrison. Something inside Maggie shifted, hardening into a resolve she never knew she had. Mr. Whitman, I just have one question. Yes? How soon can we start? Is tomorrow morning soon enough? Perfect. Walking out of that law office, Maggie knew that for the first time in her adult life, she was the one in control. Rick thought they were playing chess, and he had her in checkmate. He was about to learn she was playing a whole different game. That night, Maggie stood in her penthouse for what she knew was the last time, the sounds of the city rising from below. The apartment that once felt like a palace now just seemed like a cold museum, full of expensive things, but no actual life. Janet was helping her pack, gently wrapping the few personal things Maggie wanted to take. I am still in shock, Janet said, tucking a framed picture of Maggie's adoptive parents into a box. $200 million, sweetie. You know you are wealthier than entire countries, right? It has not sunk in yet, Maggie confessed, glancing around the master bedroom one final time. A day ago, I was convinced I was about to lose it all. Now I realize I never even needed any of Rick's money in the first place. Wow, that has to hurt his ego. The part that stings is knowing my father was looking out for me my whole adult life, and I had no idea. Maggie grabbed a jewelry box from her vanity. All this time, I thought Rick was some kind of business genius. Turns out, he was just riding on my father's coattails. Honey, let me tell you something, Janet said, launching into her favorite saying. Karma has a crazy sense of humor. Your narcissistic ex chose the absolute worst woman to double-cross. Maggie's phone buzzed. The screen read, William Harrison. Hello, Daddy, she answered, the word still feeling unfamiliar. How are you doing, kiddo? Better than I thought I would be. Charles Whitman walked me through everything today. Charlie is a great guy. He has been my attorney for 30 years. William's voice was kind but firm. Are you prepared for the next part of this? I believe so, but I have to ask you one thing, anything. Why did you not tell me who you were years ago? Why did you let me stay with Rick when you knew the kind of man he was? The line went quiet for so long, Maggie wondered if he had hung up. Because I was a coward, William finally said. I was terrified that if I reached out, you would want nothing to do with me. I was scared you would think I was just trying to buy your affection after I gave you up. So I told myself that helping you from a distance was good enough. But now, I see that I threw away 47 years being scared when I could have been getting to know my own daughter. I do not want to waste any more time. Tears welled up in Maggie's eyes. Me neither. Good, because tomorrow we teach that snake a lesson about what happens when you cross a Harrison woman. After the call ended, Maggie began making a few tactical calls of her own. First, she dialed the society columnist at the New York Post who had been hounding her for days. "This is Margaret Reynolds. I believe you have been looking for me. Mrs. Reynolds, thank you for returning my call. We are very interested in your side of the story regarding your husband's affair and the criminal allegations. I will give you an exclusive," Maggie cut in, "but on one condition. You publish exactly what I give you, precisely when I say to publish it. Well, that is not our standard procedure. Do you want the biggest story of the year, or do you want to chase rumors that will be stale by this time next week?" A beat of silence. What kind of story are we discussing? The kind that destroys careers and launches new ones. Are you interested? Extremely interested. Excellent. I will call you tomorrow night with the information. Her next call was to the event planner who managed the foundation's charity galas. "Caroline, it is Maggie Reynolds. I need you to set up an event for tomorrow evening. Maggie, I heard about the divorce. Are you okay?" "I am more than okay. I need you to arrange a small get-together, about 50 people, the regular guest list, but I need you to ensure Richard and Sophia Blake are on it. Are you certain that is a good idea, with everything going on? Caroline, just trust me. And please mention that I will be making a very important announcement about the foundation's future." Her last call was to David Martinez, Rick's attorney, who had been trying to get in touch with her for several days. "Mr. Martinez, this is Margaret Reynolds. I hear you have been trying to reach me. Mrs. Reynolds, I am glad you called. I was hoping to discuss a potential plea bargain concerning the embezzlement allegations. I have no interest in a plea bargain. Mrs. Reynolds, I would strongly advise you to weigh your options. The case against you is very strong, and the district attorney is offering a surprisingly lenient deal. Mr. Martinez, allow me to save us both some trouble. I will not be pleading guilty to crimes I did not commit just to shield my husband from the fallout of his own actions. Mrs. Reynolds, I am not sure you grasp the gravity of your situation. Oh, I grasp it perfectly. The real question is, do you grasp yours? I am sorry, I do not understand. You will tomorrow. Good night, Mr. Martinez. As Maggie finished packing the last of her personal things, her phone lit up with a text from Rick. Maggie, we have to talk. This has all gone too far. Please call me. She read the message, paused, and then typed her reply. You are right, Richard. This has gone much too far. We can talk tomorrow at the plaza. Come by yourself. His answer was instant. What is at the plaza? Your day of reckoning. Janet glanced up from the box she was taping shut. Are you absolutely sure you are ready for this? Janet, for 22 years, I was the model corporate wife. I was always polite, always supportive, always agreeable. I let everyone underestimate me because it was just easier than putting up a fight. Maggie taped the final box closed and surveyed the now empty penthouse. But that woman is gone, and tomorrow everyone is about to meet the real Margaret Harrison. What happens when a man tries to ruin his wife, only to discover he picked a fight with the wrong woman? Maggie was about to show her husband and all of New York that underestimating her was the last mistake he would ever make. This is a story about reclaiming your power, so stick around to see some truly satisfying justice. As they left the penthouse, a feeling of closure washed over Maggie. She was not just ending a marriage, she was shedding an old version of herself, one that was too small for the life she was meant to live. Tomorrow, inside the Plaza Hotel, Richard Reynolds would learn he had made the biggest mistake of his life